Well, we are here today for an interview with Mr. Joe Bishop Henchman. He is the chair for the Libertarian Party, and we're going to discuss his story and how look at the Libertarian Party as a community. Thank you for coming today, Joe.
My pleasure, Melody.
No problem. So we're going to start a little bit with your background. Um, so what drew you to the Libertarian Party? How did you become involved? What has your journey been like with the LP and how has it changed, so to speak?
Yeah, no, I've been a member my whole life, essentially. I joined when I was 11 years old after I saw a table at the county fair in San Diego. I'm originally from San Diego. And it just really spoke to me in uh, wanting in what they wanted to do. And I'd always been skeptical of authority, I guess, like most teenagers, I guess. And we had in our neighborhood, the people across the street had their house taken by eminent domain. I didn't know about eminent domain back then. All I knew is the nice people across the street were forced to move when they didn't want to move, and the neighborhood was worse off because of it. Um, and their house never got torn down because the reason they seized the house was for a highway grading project that they ended up not needing to tear down the house for. And so it was all pointless. And I remember at that young age thinking, these people who are in charge don't seem to know what they're doing. And that has kind of always stuck with me, I guess. And I helped do some protests against the curfew law in San Diego when I was later a little bit older as a teenager. And got a First Amendment exception added to it. So if you wear a little sticker that says repeal the curfew, you can be out later after curfew. And that was my first media interview. MTV came out and did a half-hour special on the protests that we were doing, and helped recall the governor of California back in 2003, and then moved to DC in 2004, and I've lived here ever since.
That's awesome. I did not know your background, so that's really cool to learn that. So you're currently chair. Why did you run for chair, and what roles did you have prior to chair, and the impact that you had in those roles as well?
Yeah, so I had been very active in the public policy world in Washington, D.C. So for most of my career to date, I got a law degree, so I'm a lawyer, and I'm a tax policy expert. So my day to day is I go around the country. This year, virtually, but in most years it's in person, working against bad tax ideas and helping promote good tax ideas in the various states. So I've testified in 36 states, and I've helped been a part of cutting about $10 billion worth of taxes at the state level. And then for about 10 years, in addition to that, I was a COO of a nonprofit organization, one of a very successful think tank, and helped recraft marketing, rebuild the organization, grow impact, quintuple fundraising support, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. And I'd always, I maintained my Libertarian Party membership during this whole time, but was not very active other than participating in local stuff and watching the national conventions on C-SPAN and so forth. I guess that changed in 2016 when the Democrats nominated who they nominated and the Republicans nominated who they nominated. And I decided that, things seemed to be really speeding up on America's situation, and Libertarian Party needed to be strong to take advantage of that. So I went down, participated in the 2016 convention, and then 2018 was elected as an at-large member of the Libertarian National Committee, which consists of 17 voting members. So I was one of 17, and then in 2020 ran for chair. And my reason is mainly I didn't think that the party put enough emphasis on getting people elected to change public policy. I think there were a lot of other missions that we were chasing, but those are missions that other organizations do either just as well or even better than we do. but because no one else can elect people, and we weren't electing people, people weren't getting elected. So I wanted to be able to change that, as well as bring what professional experience I have running organizations and helping build them and grow them to the table. So that's what I went to the delegates. The chairs chosen by the delegates, and made that pitch, and they elected me out of I think it was a 6-way race.
It's awesome. It's exciting. I remember watching the convention, and it was I was watching online, but it was definitely exciting. I really enjoyed that, and I didn't know about your background. That is incredible. If I may, what nonprofit did you work for? What think tank?
It's an organization called the Tax Foundation. After I left them, I did about a year in private law practice, and then now I'm with a different nonprofit called National Taxpayers Union.
Oh, that is awesome. That is awesome. That is really great experience to bring to being the chair as well. Um, so now we're going to shift a little bit and talk about the Libertarian Party and talk a little bit about the culture, the assets, and kind of like head into the future of the party from there.
Sure.
So what are the goals of the Libertarian Party, and how do members contribute to those goals? What kind of positive impacts have they had, like the goals and the members to the party?
Sure. So what are the goals? I think you're going to get different answers from different people. So I'll do my best to give my answer, and other people may give different answers. I think there's short-term goals and long-term goals.
Mm-hmm.
And the long-term goal is a world set free in our lifetime. Freedom. Which means different things to different people, certainly. But I think most libertarians can agree on the general direction of the way things should go. Smaller government, less involvement in monetary decisions, less involvement in personal decisions, and a government that whatever we leave it doing does it without either the incompetence or the militarism that seems to accompany so many things that the government does nowadays. And then in the short term, it's the goals, I would say, are both electing people to advance public policy and an educational mission. And I think different people emphasize different aspects of that, but they're both important because we want to be telling people what libertarians are and what libertarian policy means, both in words and through our campaigns, as well as in action. Through action, rather, of what libertarian elected officials do. And so right now we've got 225 elected officials in 37 states working to advance libertarian public policy, and oftentimes the voice of common sense and asking the questions no one else will ask in their respective bodies.
That's awesome. And it's kind of a good segue into the next few questions as well. I'm trying to keep sensitive of the time as well.
Sure.
So I kind of wanted to talk about the culture, and the cultural norms of the Libertarian Party. I myself am a libertarian, so I kind of know a little bit about it, and it's different. Everybody has their own niche. But I also kind of wanted to talk about how has that culture, since the time the party was formed in the 70s, become more inclusive and empowering for the members on the individual level, and then how are we investing in the members as helping them become leaders in the party or in an elected office, and how are we kind of helping that for the future of the membership and for enacting that public policy.
Yeah, I think a big change has been, rather than just being a once every 4 years phenomenon or even a once every 2 years phenomenon, politics now is constant. And there's the joke: as soon as the election's over, you start, people start running for the next one, and that's true. I mean, we obviously had a big election last year with presidential election and Congress and senators and state legislators and governors, but we've got local elections in a number of states this year. We've got two states electing governors this year, and then next year we'll have a congressional election and a bunch of state legislative elections. So it's fairly constant. And Libertarian Party historically has not built up this constant election and campaign infrastructure To the extent we had any, it was making sure we got our ballot access for the presidential nominee, and that we ran candidates as necessary for a bunch of different offices. But now that's transforming more into a constant thing, which means we need volunteers engaged constantly. We need fundraising constantly. We need to be messaging constantly, and that all requires an infrastructure to make happen. It obviously just doesn't happen by itself. So, you ask about the culture of the organization. It's always been an everybody knows each other kind of culture, which can be a little intimidating for new people. You walk in and, there's people who've been involved for 20 or 30 years. The average donor to the Libertarian Party has been giving for 26 years. So it's very long-standing. At the same time, we've been growing dramatically. Libertarian voter registrations have doubled in the last 10 years. 1 in 90 Americans voted the Jorgensen-Cohen Libertarian presidential ticket last year. So we've got a lot more libertarians and a lot more people that are just frankly fed up with the Republicans and the Democrats and don't think that their future has solutions for the country. So finding a way to make sure that we're welcoming people while still maintaining the principled positions that we have on issues is very important.
That's awesome. And you actually answered the next question, how has it progressed and stood out? So it's been I've seen a lot of progress with this year alone. But how are we measuring that?
Well, we look at a lot of different ways. For me, it's who do we have elected and are we supporting those elected officials? So I've actually launched a new program to provide specific support for our libertarian state legislators and council members, and giving them good ideas and connecting with each other and helping them message some of the stuff they're working on. But there's legislation being advanced in Wyoming, for instance, where we have one of our elected state legislators, where all the good ideas are emanating from Representative Marshall Burt. And the word of the year this year in the Wyoming legislature is tripartisan. If you want your bill to pass, it has to have tripartisan sponsorship. It's good because this is something libertarians don't really give ourselves enough credit for, is we're natural coalition builders. We understand the left in a way the right never will. We understand the right in a way the left never will. And we can cross that partisan divide that is so destructive to so many, to our politics nowadays, and how nothing can get done and good ideas can't get anywhere with the Republicans and Democrats, but libertarians can really cross that divide if we have a seat at the table.
That's awesome. And you actually answered the other question, what separates the Libertarian Party from the other parties? And I agree. I think that's that fact that we can kind of look at things from both perspectives and kind of mediate between the two, because there has been a lack in that. I don't know if you would agree with that observation.
I'd add our principles are absolutely important.
Mm-hmm.
We look at public policy from the question of, will this increase individual liberty, personal responsibility, autonomy, or will it not? And so it's although libertarians, the saying is you get 2 libertarians in a room and you get 5 opinions. I think for the most part, when it comes to the issues of the day, libertarians for the most part agree. And that's very helpful, because that's something you may not get with Democrats or Republicans that are changing their positions depending on different circumstances.
Yeah, that's awesome. And for the sake of time, we're going to move on to the future portion of this. In your time in the party, how has the party changed for the better? What are some of the existing challenges? And what are your goals as chair to address some of these issues?
Well, we're bigger. We've got a lot more people than we used to, but also the stakes are bigger. I remember in the 1990s where we could go weeks without really hearing about anything going on in Washington, D.C. Whereas now it's an almost constant crisis situation, what with stuff going on overseas or the domestic situation with tackling the COVID pandemic and the lockdowns and all of that. all the way to the debt we're running up. And no one seems to really care about any of this stuff except libertarians. And hopefully people we can get to support us and recognize that we have solutions and answers to a lot of these problems. So the challenges remain the same. It's a two-party system, and a lot of people look at politics as a team sport rather than as the people we're electing to make decisions about our lives and our occupations and our future, and being able to convince people that it's okay to vote your conscience and what you believe, rather than trying to be strategic about stopping the other side and all of that. And it's an asset that we have, is that we can frame it as a positive agenda of what we want to do for the country. The Democrats, Republicans, they're all about stopping the other side now. I mean, all the Democrats care about is stopping the Republicans. All the Republicans care about is stopping the Democrats. And what we care about is a better country and more freedom.
That's awesome. And you pretty much answered what the successes have been. Throughout this whole interview, we've gotten people elected in local offices. We're pushing policy, like you said, in Wyoming. But how is the Libertarian Party building upon those successes?
Well, a lot of it's trial and error and seeing what works and investing in success. So, for instance, Representative Burt winning in Wyoming, he won 53%. That's a Libertarian majority in a legislative district, which most political observers think was impossible, that Libertarians can't win a majority. But we can when we have the right messaging and we do the hard work of finding people active in their communities who can connect with the voters and talk about what they care about and knock on doors and do mailers and hustle to sell our vision and get elected and be able to do it. And so what was big about last year is we tried out a bunch of stuff to see what worked, and we're going to fine tune it a little bit and hopefully do it a whole lot more and get more libertarians elected and build success upon success.
And then what kind of impact has the national political climate in COVID-19 had? How is that changing the party? And what does the future look like for the party, in your opinion?
Well, it's certainly raising the stakes. I think there are a lot of people in America who don't want to be involved in politics for very good reasons. They just want to live their life and raise their kids and do their job and, do whatever hobbies or things interest them. And 2020 demonstrated that you may not want to care about politics, but politics still cares about you. And the people you put in charge, it's not disconnected from your daily life. It will find a way to intrude on your daily lives. And that's what we as libertarians have been talking about for years, is that, you want to get government out of your life and out of these decisions. The way you do it is you got to make government smaller and make sure that the harm that it can do is a lot smaller, based by limiting the areas that it can intrude in. So at least that was the big lesson in 2020. Obviously, there were practical implications of the pandemic and the lockdowns and all of that. It made it a lot harder to campaign in traditional ways of campaigning, of shaking hands and doing rallies and going door to door. The economic situation made it a lot harder to get volunteers and raise money. People are certainly struggling a lot more right now than they were. A lot of businesses are struggling. A lot of people are having trouble making ends meet. And these are all unfortunate challenges, and I think we'll be stronger for them. And I'm hopeful that Americans will be a little bit wiser about who they elect, given what we've gone through. That it really does matter who we elect.
No, I agree completely, and I'm hoping that the future of the party is going to be a third party, a strong third party that can be a contesting power against the other two mainstream parties. And I would hope that, or think that maybe you agree. But it was really great for you to take the time out of your day to visit with us and to allow me to ask you these questions. And hopefully we can introduce some different perspectives to some people and see the future of America change.
Thank you, Melody. Happy to. Anytime.